Part 2 of the review is about solving equations. As I do this, I'm going to show you all of my steps just so that we are clear. A lot of you are going to make really simple algebra mistakes as we move forward in the year, so I'm trying to kind of get rid of them right now. So I'm going to show you lots of work, and you should take down lots of work so that you can follow it later. Okay, so number 1, the opposite of x minus a negative 18. Well, two negatives become a positive, so this really says negative x plus 18 equals 104, which means then I would have to subtract 18 from each side. So that would leave me with negative x equals 86. Well, you can't solve for negative x, so you can multiply both sides by negative 1. So I get x to equal negative 86. Okay. Number 2, 62 minus 2/7 x equals 100. Well, if I'm solving for x, then I want to start furthest away. So I want to move the 62, and the sign in front of that is a positive 62. So I really need to subtract 62 from each side. So that's going to give me a negative 2/7 x equals 38. Okay, now I have to get rid of negative 2/7, and I can do it one of two ways. Okay, I can either divide by negative 2/7, or I can multiply by the reciprocal, which is what I'm going to do, which is negative 7 over 2. And the reason I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal is because I'm asking you to do these without a calculator. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. It's going to work a little nicer. So that cancels over here. So I get x equals, and I'm going to write this out the long way because I know some of you don't really like fractions. Okay, so I've got 38 over 1 times 7 over 2. Now what you can do is I can say, okay, 2 goes into 38 17 times, and then multiply 17 by negative 7, and I would get negative 133 for my answer. Okay, if you don't remember that 17 times 7, actually that's not right. This goes into it 19 times. So 19 times 7, sorry about that, is 63. So 7, 133. Okay? So number 3, the absolute value. Okay, if you remember, when you're solving for absolute values, you're always going to have two answers, because if that answer inside that blue line is positive or negative, I'm going to get the exact same answer. So first I need to move my 3 before I even worry about that. So I've got 2/3 k plus 6 equals 8. Now, in order to drop the absolute value bars, I'm going to write two equations. I'm not going to change the inside at all. Okay, the inside is going to stay the same, but my second equation is going to be set equal to a negative 8, because if this whole thing comes out to be a negative 8 like it is here, the absolute value cancels and I'm still getting the positive 8 that I'm looking for. So that's where you get two answers. Okay, either way, the first thing I would do is subtract 6. So I get 2/3 k to equal 2. Subtract 6 down here. Just be really careful of your negatives. Negative 8 minus 6 is a negative 14. Again, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal here because we're doing this without a calculator. So I'm going to get k to equal, again, I'll write this out, 2 over 1 times 3 over 2. Well, the 2's cancel, so that gives me a final answer of 3. Again, I'll multiply by the reciprocal down over here. So that's going to give me k to equal negative 14 over 1 times 3 over 2. 2 goes into 14 7 times. 7 times 3 is negative 21. Okay, so there are your two answers for number 3. Number 4 looks like a whole lot of fun. Okay, we're obviously getting more challenging as we move forward. First thing I need to do is get rid of my parentheses. So I'm going to distribute. Okay, now hopefully you were getting a little better at fractions, but this is 1/3 times 6 over 1, which means I can just go 6, 3 goes into 6 2 times, so that becomes a 2x. Okay, you can also think of it, if this is a 1 on top, you can do this 9 divided by 3, which will give me 3. Okay, so that's going to become 2x minus 3 equals, okay, I'll do maybe some side work over here. I'll go over here, negative 3 over 5 times 25 over 1. So 5 goes into 25 5 times, multiply straight across, and that's going to give me a negative 15. Okay, again, I'll do my work over here, 3/5 times 5 over 1, because I'm distributing here. 5 goes into 5, those cancel. 3 times 1 gives me 3. I had two negatives, so that's going to give me plus a 3x. And then outside, I still had plus a 3x. Okay, you need to get better with your fractions without your calculator. So there's your side work. Hopefully, you're getting a little bit more automatic with that. So first thing I'm going to do over here is put together my x's. So I have 6x. The next thing I would like to do is get my x's together. So I'm going to subtract 2x from each side. So I've got -3. Again, be really careful of your signs here, okay? There was a negative. Make sure you carry that down. Little mistakes are going to be really challenging for you to avoid. So 6x minus 2x is 4x. Okay, I need to solve for x, so I need to move my 15. So I'm going to add 15. Again, be careful. -3 plus 15 is a positive 12 equals 4x. Divide each side by 4. X equals 3. Okay, the more steps you write down, the less chance you are of making silly mistakes, and those are the ones that really get frustrating. Okay, number 5, the square root of c equals 5. Well, the opposite of a square root is to square each side. So over here, the square and the square root cancel, so c will equal 5 squared, which is 25. That one wasn't so bad. Number 6, over here, we've got two fractions equal to each other. I'm just going to go ahead and change this to 5x plus 10 right away. Okay, distribute that. When you have something like this, I don't know if you remember, but this is where you're going to cross multiply. So I'm going to take 6 times my 3x minus 4, that whole quantity, make sure you put in parentheses, and then that's going to be set equal to this other set of parentheses, 3 times 5x plus 10. Okay, those two things are equal. I've seen a lot of students make that into a new fraction. That is not the case. It gets rid of the fractions and they're set equal to each other. Okay, so from here I would distribute. So I'm going to have 18x minus 24 equals, and I'm going to distribute again, 15x plus 30. Again, let's get our x's together. I usually move the side with the smaller x's so that I'm working in positives. So 18x minus 15x is going to give me 3x minus 24 equals 30. Here I'll add 24 to each side. So I'm going to get 3x to equal 54. Divide that out and I shall get 18. Okay, if you don't want to divide that out, again, you can go 54 divided by 3 and do it long term. Okay, you probably remember how to do that. Number 7, all sorts of fractions. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on this left side is turn this into sixths. So if I multiply top and bottom, that's going to give me 4/6r. So now I can add these. 4/6 plus 1/6 is 5/6r minus 12 equals, okay, and then I'll distribute over here. So it'll be 1/2 r minus, okay, remember the trick, if there's a 1 on top, I can just do 8 divided by 2. That gives me 4. Okay, at this point, again, I still want to get my r's together. So let's change my 1/2 into 6 so that I have a common denominator. So that's really 3/6 r. So I'm going to subtract 3/6 r from each side. So 5/6 r minus 3/6 r is 2/6 r minus 12 equals a -4. Again, watching your signs. Okay, I'm going to add 12 to each side here. 2/6 is the same thing as 1/3. So I've got 1/3 r equals -4 plus 12 is 8. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal here, which is just 3. So r equals a nice 24. Okay, most excellent. Number 8, you guys are doing a good job. Hang in there. This time I've got something squared equals 64. So the opposite of that is the square root. So square and square root cancel. M equals 8. It could also equal -8 because -8 squared is a positive 64. So the tricky one here, make a note for yourself, is that there can always be two answers when you're square rooting something. Okay. Number 9 is another one of those absolute values to practice. Remember, we want to get the absolute value by itself first. Okay, so I need to get rid of everything else. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is subtract 5. So I got the absolute value of 2x plus 4 all over 3 to equal 4. I still need to get rid of everything else, so I need to get rid of the 3. So since I'm dividing by 3, I can multiply each side by 3. So now I've got the absolute value of 2x plus 4 to equal 12. I can now drop them by writing two equations. 2x plus 4 equals 12. Or, again, you keep the inside the same. 2x plus 4 equals a -12, right? Because if this part turns out to be negative, the absolute value makes it positive. So I can have two answers. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 4 here. So I'm going to have 2x equals 8. Divide by 2. So I'm going to have x equals 4. Or same steps here, subtract 4. Just watch your signs. So now I've got 2x equals a negative 16. Divide each side by 2. X equals a negative 8. Okay, so you've got 2 answers for absolute value ones. And number 10, last but not least. Okay, this one's tricky, and I want you to notice, learn to pay attention to detail, that the variable is on the bottom of a fraction, okay? That changes things, okay? 3 over 2c is not the same thing as 3 halves c, okay? Those are different. The c is in the denominator, okay? So I'm going to add 3 to each side. It's going to give me 11 equals 3 over 2c. Now, because the variable is on the bottom, I cannot just multiply by the reciprocal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help myself out, and 11 is the same thing as 11 over 1, and now it's set up, okay, to cross multiply. So 2c times 11 is 22c. 3 times 1 is 3. Now to get c by itself, I'm going to divide each side by 22. The fraction 3 over 22 does not reduce, so please leave it in fraction form as 3 over 22. Okay, so lots of review on how to solve. Okay, it's really important that you can do this and you understand all of the steps of all of these, because these are going to become automatic from here on out. So please bring questions that you have any, okay, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.